Hi folks, I've had a lot of requests to come on and talk about the hot topic of the moment, which is of course the coronavirus. So that's what I'm going to do today. This is going to be just a short report because I think it's pretty easy to sum up what's really going on here if you can step back and look at it. There's been a lot of fear mongering with this coronavirus. It's been sort of going out everywhere. Everywhere you look, it's sort of dominating the news. So it is a big concern for a lot of people. And the reports are everywhere, folks. When I look at the news reports, I mean, it's coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. You go down here, it's like 15 or 16 news items before you get to anything that isn't coronavirus. And then it's just all about Trump's impeachment. So, that's the way it goes, folks. The news is most definitely controlled, but they want people to think what they want people to think with this coronavirus, and I think it's very important that people see that there's a bigger picture to it. And, with any of these events, these are planned. All of these events are planned. They always are, and there's always a certain amount of disinformation out there to muddy the waters, and there's also always in these events a trail that's left there for the conspiracy theorists to form whatever sort of opinion they want to form and then argue over the details with each other. That's what people tend to do with a lot of this conspiracy culture. But of course, I mean, there are conspiracies. There are people who plan things, but you've got to understand they also leave disinformation trails as well. Now, there's no doubt that this virus has been cooked up. I mean, it is essentially a naturally occurring virus, but it's been modified, it's been cooked up. This particular strain of the coronavirus was found, I believe, in a cave somewhere, and it was taken to the Wuhan laboratory, or the Wuhan laboratory, in China. This is on record that they did receive this virus, and they have worked on it, and they have very likely weaponized it. But of course, you can look at this and say, well, that indicates that this is a controlled release, blah, blah, blah. But you've got to wonder whether they would do that. Would they release a virus controlled like this and have it sort of go out of control and create a pandemic around the world? I mean, you might find that people are getting sick that you don't want to get sick. So you've got to look at how they would run this, folks. Were they going to release this virus, and how it would be best to construct a pandemic if you wanted to have one? Now, there's no doubt, like I said, that they've worked on this virus and they've cooked it up. You can look at this website here. I'll put a link below. This is on a website called State of the Nation, and they've gone through the patents here. They've got all the patents there for you to show how it was cooked up. I mean, Pirbright was the company that did it. This is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill and Melinda Gates ran a simulation of a virus pandemic just 3 months ago or something. All of this has been done so you can see how they planned it. They've looked at what the specs will be, and then you would say, well, okay, then they've released the virus in this market in Wuhan to create the scenario that they predicted, and they're going to control it. They've already got the vaccine, blah, blah, blah. This is the way you'd be looking at it. This is the way a lot of people are looking at it. There has been a lot of reports coming out actually as well, though, regarding 5G. Saying that Wuhan was one of the first places they implemented 5G, and 5G could be responsible for it. There's even websites that have come out here to deny this claim. The Wuhan coronavirus has nothing to do, or coronavirus has nothing to do with 5G. Claim, conclusion, blah, blah, blah. They're putting this out there to say, well, this is all nonsense, blah, blah, blah. And there's talks here that it's suggested that 5G has damaged people's immune system and so boosted the virulence of the common cold. Okay, this is the line that they're pushing. And when you look at coronavirus, folks, it is the common cold. Human coronavirus and rhinovirus, it's the common cold. They've just sort of modified it. But they're putting out these reports to say it's got nothing to do with 5G, and this is the line that they're using, that the claim is that it has damaged people's immune systems. But that's not really what it's about, folks. See, 5G, the carrier wave of 5G operates in the 60 hertz bandwidth. It operates a lot lower and a lot higher than that, but it can operate in the 60 hertz bandwidth. And the 60 hertz bandwidth is the same bandwidth that affects oxygen. So you don't actually need to affect people's immune systems. All you actually need to do is affect the amount of oxygen in the air. You can destabilize, if you will, the oxygen molecule. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you all the details. There is a link below actually by a guy called Joe Imbruglia or something like that. Sorry if I got your name wrong. From the Fullerton Informer, who did a great report on this, and he referenced a book called Magnetic Biology. And he talks about how they can do this. They can literally change the oxygen molecule in the air and cause respiratory problems in people simply from the 5G carrier wave. You don't actually have to compromise their immune systems. You can compromise the oxygen molecules in the air through 5G. So would this be a more fitting way to do this? Would this be a more reasonable way to create a pandemic situation out of the symptoms that most people have from the common cold? You could do this quite easily. You could put out the fear that it was this new coronavirus pandemic that is sweeping the world. And the fact that it was traced to a market in Wuhan is very significant as well, because what they can do with this, folks, is they can say, well, okay, well, you've got a biological weapons lab here 7 kilometres from the marketplace. Obviously, they've released the virus into the marketplace and it's been transmitted through all the food. This is what the conspiracy theorists will say. But the normal people in mainstream society will just look at it and they might think, well, it was a leak. It somehow got out of the lab and they didn't want it to, but it seems to have definitely come from the lab. But it's the marketplace that is the vector. The marketplace is where it transferred to everybody. So they can start looking at the danger of having organic markets in societies. We don't want to have these places. The transference of disease is too possible in these places. And the quarantine and locking down of places and economic control that can come from this. And of course, the vaccinations that people will be lining up to get to protect them from this terrible coronavirus, which is simply a modified version of the common cold, quite likely made worse through the 5G carrier wave. You know, like I said, all they've got to do is do something in the 60 hertz cycle, in the 60 hertz bandwidth, and they can affect the oxygen molecules. People will start having respiratory problems, you know, depending on what their health is, depending on whether they're a drinker, depending on whether they've been going out and partying, all the stuff that we do to run our bodies down. You get in that state of a little bit of disrepair, a little bit of, you know, abuse to the bodily system. Suddenly you're susceptible to these deprived oxygen molecules and you start developing respiratory problems. They tell you it's the coronavirus and they give you a vaccination. You know, they can use this to force vaccinations on people, they can use it to shut down organic markets, and they can use it to force economic control over places as well, and most especially quarantine, prevent people from travelling. So that's what I think most of this is about, folks. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to release this terrible bioweapon into the environment when they're not really going to know who it could affect. You know, it could get completely out of control and affect people that they don't want it to affect. It would be much easier to contrive a pandemic through electromagnetic means and simply use the common cold that's everywhere anyway to create this so-called pandemic, which is in fact very controlled. You know, when I look at it, folks, I think that is the main purpose of this whole coronavirus outbreak. I think it's a controlled release. It's a controlled pandemic that is wholly constructed. I don't think the coronavirus is anywhere near as deadly as what we're being told. I think this is all to do with 5G, personally. It makes more sense to me for them to do it this way if they were going to have a pandemic. You know, I look at the things, like I said, that can come out of it, the 3 main things, which would be forced vaccinations, quarantine of people, preventing travel, and a shutdown of farmers' markets. I think that is the main agenda here. All Agenda 21, folks, it all supports the same thing that we're seeing here in Australia, you know, with the fires and everything else. And the fires here are still going. People are being given the option now that they can sell their land to the government because it's not going to be safe to return to the lands. Everything that we were saying they were going to do is what they're doing. And the firestorms are continuing, the heat waves are continuing. Outrageous fires in Canberra at the moment. I will bring you some more reports on the fires when more information comes to hand. And I want to bring you a couple of reports on a couple of other things as well in the next couple of days. I'm going to be doing an interview with Kev Baker on the 5th, which is in a couple of days. We're going to be talking about recent events in my life for those who have questions about this, and I certainly still have a lot of questions about this as well. But I think the best way to hash it out will be in a conversation with someone. So I'm going to go into the Kev Baker show on the 5th. That will be, I think it's Wednesday night for people in the United States and in England and the UK. I think it's Thursday morning here for me in Australia. So that'll be an interesting conversation as well. But I do have some more reports to bring you about a few other things that are circulating on the internet as well that I want to address, and I'll do that in the next couple of days. But that's about all I have to say on the coronavirus, folks. I think this is very controlled, very contrived, and I think there's far more to it than meets the eye. I wouldn't be getting any vaccinations, and I wouldn't be concerning myself that this is this major viral outbreak that they're saying it is. I think that there's a lot of factors to this that people aren't considering, and as I said, I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. But I'll continue to look at it, and I'll bring you another report as soon as I'm able. But thanks for listening to this one, and I will speak to you again in the next couple of days. In Lakesh.